the heart of European League of Legends, home to countless stories of struggle, perseverance, and success. But something dangerous is quickly infiltrating this hallowed institution: role swaps.
A role swap is when a player, or in other circumstances, a member of the support staff behind the scene, will swap themselves onto the starting lineup of a professional League of Legends team.
While at first glance, role swaps can sound like just another trend, one that will fade away with time, role swaps themselves have a long and difficult history in League of Legends around the world.
One of the first role swaps we recorded was Doublelift in the LCS, and while his recent years were quite successful domestically, people forget about the long periods of hardship.
Doublelift walking right into the bush. He will face check this, and he could be going down. He is absolutely going down.
From 2011 to the summer of 2015, Peter Doublelift Pang went titleless. His trophy case remained empty, but everyone else in his eyes remained trash. These delusions of grandeur, one of the many side effects of the role swap process. Mark Cagel-Lamont knows this feeling firsthand.
You just feel so incredibly good when you swap. You spend so much time watching other players make all these stupid mistakes in their role, and you just know you can do better.
Ultimately, Cagel's role swap, like so many others, proved unfruitful, leaving him lost in the world of League of Legends esports.
It's hard sometimes to know what I really should be doing. You know, am I a mid laner? Am I a jungler? Am I a caster? Am I a Lee Sin one-trick streamer? It looks fun from the outside, but a lot of people don't understand the consequences.
Egos and overconfidence can definitely be a problem when it comes to role swaps. But the biggest two side effects that we warn people about are the loss of identity and relentless memeing.
Despite these clear risks, many players still decide to role swap. Some are so hooked on the feeling that they will do it just for a few days or a single split. It's hard to know if these decisions will haunt them, but role swaps certainly have had a dramatic effect on players in the LEC.
It was supposed to be fun, you know? My top laner role swap once, and he was okay. I thought, what would one split in the jungle hurt? And the next thing you know, your coach is swapping too, and then you're 0-5 just like that. It's gotten so bad that in solo queue, I don't even select a role anymore. I just pick Phil and let the system decide for me.
A lot of people will always think of players like Perks, Caps, international names like Ambition, Core JJ, players who have really glorified role swaps. But for every one of these players who find success, there is somewhere another player running it down or looking really dumb.
Are they sitting there?
That's my spot.
It's hard to know how long role swaps will stick around, but one thing is for sure. Even if the swaps stop, the players affected will still remain. This has been Daniel Dracos for LEC News.
Oh yeah, and hello and welcome to Berlin, Germany. We're in the beautiful LEC studio. This is the home of the LEC, and we're ready for week 3. We're getting it started. Summer is upon us, and with that comes some new arrivals to the Rift, including our on-air talent. It is my absolute pleasure to not only introduce myself, Narcissism, I am Alex Machine Richardson, but also it is our debut of none other than Georgia Troubleinc Paras. Take a bow, very warm welcome. It must feel good to be here.
Oh, it feels so freaking good.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember when we were talking about having your first break?
My hands are shaking the same amount now, but yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, feels good to be here and rocking
Weird Champ.
Oh, we have to talk about him.
Yeah, don't forget Weird Champ.
Yeah,
Me
Weird
too,
Champ's
but
hanging out.
no one about me.
But I'm sure a lot of other people over in Twitch chat are happy to see you, Ender. We'll come back to him in a moment. But first, in spring, we saw the beginning of a new era in the LEC. But in summer, former champions G2 and Fnatic are off to a flying start. You can see them there at the tippy top, both 2-0 last week.
Honestly, people might think it's boring, the Fanatics, the G2s, Dynasty Kings, Legacies, but it's such a breath of fresh air to see both of them rivaling for the first spot. Because G2, let's be honest, they didn't have the best spring split, I would say, and Fnatic with the role swaps, you don't expect them to be in the top, and this is where they're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the Bunny Rabbits nipping at the heels of G2 as well. Misfits top of the table, Ender, is that kind of a bit of a surprise?
Yeah, I mean, it's a surprise if you're checking out the Misfits of last split, but I was pleasantly surprised back when I was on the show in week 1, and I thought the Misfits had really excellent team fighting and the decisions individual players made within fights, and I'm really happy to see that they're able to drag that on another week, and I want to see how much further they can get with it.
Yeah, and of course, you know, last time I was checking in, I was getting hyped about the rookies of spring taking over the new generation, Mad Lions. 3-2, okay. What's the situation? What's the litmus test on Mad Lions?
I mean, they're not completely gone. They're 3-2. They're towards the top of the pack together with Fnatic. But something that we don't talk a lot about, and it's quite a big issue, right, is the in-between tournaments like Worlds, like MSI, which is a big deal for every team. But then we have to think, they have to do scrims to do the regular season, then scrims to do the extra tournament, then scrims to jump back into another season. And the burnout can be really big. Now, Humanoid also mentioned a lot how if he gets burnt out, if he loses his fire for the game, he might not be top-notch, which kind of contradicts himself because I feel like in this Mad Lions roster, Humanoid has literally stonks. He had just shot up.
Okay, and just to follow on that, is there any reason for alarm bells to be ringing, or are we going to give them a little bit of a carte blanche for a couple of weeks?
Honestly, yeah, I'm willing to give them a little bit of time. A loss to Excel is worrying, but we're still early on in the split. We've seen it in the past when G2 came back from MSI. Well, it takes them a little while to get back into the swing of things. So once we get into the second half of the season, that's when I'm going to start being much more critical on the Mad Lions.
Yeah, now, of course, moving on towards a team I assume you know very well, SK Gaming Trouble. Yeah, you've had some workings and some experience with them. SK Gaming, the only team without a win. So it's a big change for this week with Lilip in as support, Treat sticking around in that jungle. So this is the reveal. Lilip, I'm sure, is going to be bringing a whole lot to this roster. You know him well.
Yeah, Lilip is one of the boys from the SK Prime in Cologne. I've worked really closely with them as well, and he got the promotion to the LEC team. Now, what I feel like it's really interesting about Lilip is that he's a Hylissang in the making. He's willing to play the playmakers, the Nautiluses, the Leonas, the Thresh, dive in there, create the opportunities for him, for his team, and try to be the front runner. And in all honesty, something that we've criticized SK for is the fact that since Jeju hasn't had treats in the bot lane, it's been a little bit passive, and I think Lilip can bring this fire back.
Same sentiment for you, Ender?
Yeah, no, honestly, I love just hearing Trouble characterize him as another Hylissang style player, because I think we've seen it with the next, generation of support players coming into the LEC after seeing players like Hylissang and Mickey X succeed. That playstyle has caught on like wildfire in solo queue, and now it's about mastering it. So Lilip's the next guy to get to prove that he can do it with the best.
Yeah, and absolutely. We move straight from that into, well, okay, a champion even I can play, and there has been some updates with him. The new Dr. Mundo is enabled. I think that was Baby's first League of Legends character. Throw in the cleavers as he always does. But how much has changed with this fella? Like, is he going to be unrecognizable?
A little bit. He's like 300% more tongue, so that blocks off a lot of space. Very blue as well. The cleavers have turned into bone saws, which I personally think was a complete mistake by Riot, but he has the same feeling of the old Mundo. Q feels very similar to the Ultimate 2, has some new bells and whistles, can shrug off immobilizing effects with his passive, can store some HP back, return that off of damage he takes, but at the end of the day, what Riot removed was his fast jungle clear, and the few times we saw him in the LEC previously, it was for his ability to keep up with the Udyrs and those fast-paced meta junglers. So I actually don't think we're going to see a lot of him, and if we do see him, it will be in the top lane.
So I'm not going to hold my breath for a Mundo pick then, Trouble.
Yeah, well, we had a Mundo player, and he's no longer in the LEC, so I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, well, I light a candle and I won't hold my breath, that's for sure. But speaking of picks, we might see Rise this week. Trouble, you have looked into the champions that could take over the Rift this week.
Well, we're still in patch 11.12, and we've got something old, something new and borrowed, And something blew over there in the end. Ezreal is mainly picked as a counterpick to Varus due to his ability to play from a distance and match the poke in lane. His build path is also what makes him excel in the current meta, as both Divine Sandra and Frozen Heart make him extremely tanky versus very often picked champions in the current meta, such as Viego, Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, Nocturne. The list of AD Bruisers and Assassins goes on and on. But it doesn't end there. His final build provides Ezreal with 95 ability haste, yes, which is more or less equal to 50% cooldown reduction, rendering all his abilities practically spammable. Now, Diana, on the other hand, is a champion that we have seen a massive resurgence of in the eastern regions with a 53.3% win rate in the LPL, but has yet to be picked in the LEC this split. There is quite the AP jungle gap between the S-tier Rumble and some of the forgotten on the bookshelf picks, such as Morgana, Nidalee, and Lilia, who, yes, they're still viable, but no, they're not as strong. And Diana fills in that gap just perfectly, while being a great fit to the current meta for multiple reasons. She's a counterpick into Rumble, which is very important, as he can both match his speed clear, as well as being able to straight up beat him in a 1v1 due to her extreme burst. But one of the most crucial tools in her kit is her ability to engage fights, especially versus long-range poke compositions, which, let's be honest, we all know they're flavor of the month right now. So she doesn't need an Orianna, because guess what? She has her own sombrero. Now, of course, when you have engaged tools on the top side of the map, champions like Leona and Nautilus are not as needed anymore, which allows for more room for the likes of enchanters such as Karma, Lulu, and the all-time crowd favorite, or maybe not, Yuumi. The cat hasn't seen a lot of play across the world yet, but he has been spotted in the LCK by none other than the world champions Damwon Kia, and more specifically, Beryl. Yuumi's damage on her Q was very recently buffed, and paired up with the likes of Ezreal or Varus, it makes up for a very deadly poke-heavy bot lane. In later stages of the game, Yuumi has now more than ever multiple candidates for her to attach onto, with champions like Akali, Viego, Xin Zhao, and any others that want to play in your face. Let's not forget, though, that Yuumi provides any ally with ability to hard engage through her ultimate, chase down potential with her Q, and healing them up to almost full HP with the press of one button. And don't worry, for all your dying frontliners that just disappear, then you can just go back to this guy, the 1v9 raid boss Ezreal, and you just carry with him. Last Friday, Rogue pulled out a surprise Fiddlesticks jungle versus Misfits, and like every other character in a scary movie, the rabbits did not see it coming.
Here comes the cruel storm! Ask whatever damn question you want of the Raven, it's a murder in the bot lane!
Well, were you surprised?
Going into summer, we had 11 roster changes in the LEC. And after 2 weeks, I think it's about time for us to take an early transfer rating. And for this, we're introducing the Trouble Meter. And you can head over to discord.lec.gg and tell us which emote you're leaning towards for each of these players. So we started off, and it is beautiful, by the way. I have to give the graphics team a lot of credit, Trouble. They've given you a wonderful meter.
Yeah,
let's start,
I thought you were talking about me. What the man? Come
Dream on, bro. Dream
I thought you were saying I was
They've
beautiful.
given you like 16 screens. Are you not happy?
Yeah, look how big your face is. I'm 4 pixels, you're 240, so relax. Cool your
Yeah, but
jets.
how can I compete with the drip? Whatever, man.
All right,
Get us
all
into
right.
the segment.
Yeah, I'll try. Trouble, let's start with Nuke Duck.
Oh, you want to start with the controversial stuff?
Can I?
Yeah, of course.
Bitter?
All right,
Bitter?
let's hit in. Okay, so basically, I'm gonna do it woman style and throw it back to last summer where Chocolate was playing in Excel. And in all honesty, I've been an advocate of Chocolate ever since he played in EU Masters, but it just did not work for Excel. And then bringing in Nuke Duck, bringing in his experience. The guy had been grinding his butt off in solo. He was high challenger in EU West, and now he's coming back to a roster which didn't necessarily surprise as much in spring. And honestly, he's looking pretty good. He's got positive stats in lane. He's playing the champions that really want to go and get in there, like the Jace, the Akali, the Sylas. He wants to fight. He wants to brawl. And honestly, it's a breath of fresh air to see Elena of Excel doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we will be putting your vote on the board behind you. What is the what's the current vibrations? I mean, it's not. It doesn't sound all bad.
Okay, so he hasn't necessarily been able to 1v9.
Yes.
But knowing that this is Excel, you don't necessarily have to. I think something positive in lane will count. So I'll put it a little bit above the Frog towards the Fiora, but I'm not like 100% happy.
No.
But it's a positive change.
Okay, positive change, room for improvement, there always is. There you are, I keep losing you. There you are, I found you. But I want to check in as well with the Discord votes. If you guys have been fast on your fingers, we can see what you guys have been saying as well. I don't know where that's going to manifest. Hang on. It's in the, oh, it's in front of me. They went for the Frog / neutral. Okay, I thought there was going to be like a magic reveal there. I am just setting my expectations too high for the LEC. That's my fault. That's my fault. Either way, we have to move on. And Ender, you have a less tough cookie, I think. This one does seem to split opinions. Self-made and leader, excuse me, for Vitality.
Yeah, look, the whole theme of today has been spookiness, and this is a roster that had a lot of people spooked. Either it's going to be terrifying, or it's going to be terrifyingly bad, and it's been a little bit mixed so far with Selfmade and Leader. A big concern of mine was the play styles between these two players, both a little bit more focused on themselves, and it's looked good when they are working together, when Selfmade has gone off of a farming champion, gone onto the Shinzao, gotten more active in the early ganking. Here you can see him working around the map, roaming with Leader, and that duo does look good when they can get there, but still I wonder if those playstyles line up super well, Trouble.
100% agree with Ender right here. Leader in EU Masters, beautiful. All the assassins playing in your face, champions. I think the meta suits him.
Did you just chef's kiss in real life?
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
I always do that.
I know. Take it for a spin.
I think that Selfmade, as you've mentioned before, he needs to put any ego down and try to facilitate for Leader. So for me, that change hasn't paid the bills yet, and I'm gonna go towards the
With Sad B?
Yeah.
With Sad B? Well, I'm afraid the community right now are disagreeing with you. The vote check-in does seem to be going Fiora / good. So, okay, split opinions, as we might have expected with Selfmade and all of that drama. Now, we do have one more, speaking of drama. Trouble, Bwipo moving to the jungle. Now, I tried to get my head around this as I was coming in for my League of Legends, doing my homework. Bwipo to the jungle.
You made your own memes
and
with the Bwipo in the jungle?
I tried, but he's rocking it. I mean, word on the street is this man has hit the ground running in the jungle role.
He's doing absolutely fantastic. I feel like maybe he should have been a jungler.
Sure.
After all, you know, he's not dying. He's so good at tracking jungle. He's so good at his own pathing. He's so good at ganking. He's so good at knowing which lane to play for and which one not to. It feels like he was born for that. And what makes it even better and even juicier is that with him in the jungle, Fnatic can pull out so many different compositions. They can play for their jungler and their jungle can play for them. So I think it's been an absolutely positive change.
Now, Ender, I assume you're loving this, right? A, you're a big fan of Bwipo, and B, you're a jungle nerd. Is this tickling your pickle in all the right ways?
In every single way, just perfect. And Bwipo, he's an innovator, you know? He played the wacky stuff in the top lane, and now he's bringing it into the jungle. I remember talking to him about a month and a half ago maybe, and he was saying, yeah, so I got this new tech I'm working on. Karthus jungle with Smite teleport, and then he just brings it out and gets away. Like, oh my god, I love it. And this guy's gonna have so much more planned up his sleeve. The other thing too, you heard like Adam talked about in a recent interview saying that Bwipo is so good at tracking the opposing jungler, and that's one of the hardest things to learn, like I feel like when you're initially coming into the jungle position. So Bwipo is on track to be an excellent jungler, and he's already performing among the best.
I mean, let's be honest, right? He's died a lot to junglers to now know where the opponent jungler is, I feel like.
I'll give you that credit, but the fact that he's rocking, what, 3 first place stats week 2 coming into week 3, I'm very intrigued. How long he maintains that against seasoned junglers, it's going to be a real expression of just how good he is. Very, very, very cool. And I say it's cool. Why don't we see what the magic...
All the way to the Fiora.
It is? I thought it might be.
All the way to the Fiora.
Okay.
I think it's been a hugely positive impact having him in the jungle, so we're really happy with that.
Yeah, and it looks like you guys at home do agree with Trouble on that one. But let's not forget that there is more to be looking forward to, because not only do you get to see Bwipo in that jungle, tomorrow, Bwipo and Fnatic have one hell of a challenge as they go up against their arch nemesis, G2, in our match of the week.
I feel like Fnatic G2 is something that you can avoid. I think it's just the long-lived rivalry. I'm really happy there is a game like this.
I'm never gonna stop this. Be the ones to end this. Never let this go. Threatening, this will be a day of reckoning. This is our time. We are on the battle line, listen to a war cry.
Wonder with the huge outplay in the 1 versus 2.
Jankos! Jankos, that is disgusting! It's 3 kills for Fnatic.
Another 2v2 kill of Upset and Hylissang.
G2 wipe Fnatic out. The Thousand Pierced Baird.
Oh boy, yes, the El Clasico of the LEC, and both teams have returned to form in summer. Is that not just a match made in heaven?
Absolutely, and I think the one behind us is also a match made in heaven. We talked about the impact that Bwipo had in the jungle, but if I had to say something about these two specifically, I think that they fit the role just perfectly because they're both babysitters of their own team. We've talked about how much Jankos babysits the lanes of G2, like little crybaby. My lane is not great. Jankos is gonna go there, sacrifice his jungle.
He puts the band-aid on, he kisses your knee.
Puts you to sleep. Yeah. Bwipo does the same thing, but he wasn't able to from the top lane because it's such an isolated role. Now from the jungle, he can have the shot calling from the very beginning.
So he was doing like long distance calls, encouraging them in the top lane. Now he's actually there kissing them on the knee. We have that. Bwipo ambulance is on the way. Be sure to tune in though for Match of the Week tomorrow, but today's schedule is also pretty damn stacked as the top 5 go against the bottom 5. So this is the question. Where on earth do we see the upset? And my eyes are immediately drawn to a return to G2. Am I just a broken record? Do we just talk about G2 all the time? Is that the LEC?
Yes.
Okay.
Caps versus Lida.
Yeah, okay.
Seeing Caps on something like an Akali and Lida on another assassin, I'm like, hell yeah. I think this Vitality roster is like a wannabe G2. They've got really strong aggressive laners, and they're literally gonna clash heads.
Yeah. No, and Ender, I assume you have more.
Oh yeah, you guys catch on quick. Just talk about G2. I also think our second match of the day, we've got SK, of course, with Lilip coming into the roster too. So I'll have my eyes on that to see another one of those spooky role swaps, how it pays off.
Okay, well, we'll
He likes the horror.
Yeah, I mean, this role swap thing just really interests me. I mean, there's not much of a precedent set for someone to just up and swap to a different role and thrive as much as Bwipo has.
Honestly, if you listen to a lot of pro players, they'll say that at the level that they're playing right now, they should be able to play every single role equally. And even though that's the case, there's always something in the back, right? You're missing something, whether it's the shot calling, the champions that this player was playing. Like, you're always missing something. Sure, they can play it to a standard, but you're missing something.
But it's part of communication at a high level, right? You have to be aware of the best move for your teammates as well as your best move. I guess that makes sense. Damn it, everything's making sense. After barely missing playoffs in spring, Misfits have looked like a brand new team in summer. Law did spend some time and catch up with their head coach to find out exactly why.
And thank you, Machine and Candyfloss. Thank you so much for joining me ahead of your game. You had an incredible start of the season with Misfits. Actually, congrats on that. But actually, how are you managing players' expectation so that you could maintain this performance through summer?
Well, we're just taking it week by week, one game at a time. I think the reality is that we didn't achieve anything yet, so we're not getting complacent. We have great leaders and veterans in Kobe, Vander, and Razok who help us keep composed and focused because at the end of the day, the goal is to get to playoffs and to Worlds, and we need 10 wins to do that, and right now we only have 4. So each week we just need to get better and better.
Yeah, it is a good start. And I mean, Hirit did an interview with Ashley Kang recently, and he said something that I found quite interesting. That the ceiling is very high, but your lows are very low in game. Do you agree with Hirit here? And how do you explain the imbalance between your performance, maybe?
Well, we're still learning and improving together as a team, and obviously we have weaknesses, and sometimes we make mistakes in games, and that causes some chaos. But we're just going to keep working hard, keep improving on our mistakes. staying humble. Even though we're first place, for us, it doesn't mean anything. We know that there's a lot we can improve on, and we're just working each week to get a little bit better.
Yeah, and there's already a lot you improved on actually since week 1, because one of the focus points for Misfits was actually the early game and how the team can be shaky sometimes in the early game. But we saw the improvements in week 2 actually. So can you tell me about the work environment at Misfits and the way you guys train? And yeah, maybe if you put some emphasis on these early games.
Yeah, in the first week we played a lot of scaling compositions, and obviously we had some tricky early games. In terms of work environment, to work on our early games, I think what we're doing at Misfits is really great, because we're doing a lot of things outside of the game which has built our bond closer as a team, and we're more comfortable to give feedback to each other, have those hard conversations, and then we can improve on our mistakes and no one's feelings are hurt. We all have the same goal and we all want to reach the top, reach playoffs and reach worlds.
That is wonderful to hear, all the same goal. Now coming about the games that you're going to have today, anything you can tell me about the matchup?
Well, again, going back to the fact that we need to make playoffs, XL is right below us in the standings, and to get to the playoffs we need to consistently beat the teams below us. So it's a really important game. They brought in some veterans into their team, Danik and Nugduk, and I think they're playing pretty well, so it's going to be a tough game, but I think we've got what it takes today.
Yeah, tough game, but we'll see if you can remain first at the end of this week in the LEC. But for now, Candyfloss, thank you so much for the interview and good luck today against XL.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
And Machine, back to you.
Thank you very much. Law there with Candyfloss. We've got Ender within the realms of the desk. Like, we can't make eye contact with him, but you can. He's very handsome and he is just beneath us. So let's get this one started then. It is kind of outlining what our expectations, and Misfits is our first port of call. Improving their early game into week 2. I mean, how disastrous was the week 1 then in that case, Ender?
It was pretty disastrous. Like, as you can see on the stats back there, minus 1.4K, like in the individual lanes, it wasn't really showing up either. And yet they were able to find a lot of big wins through their later game team fighting, you know, clawing back from an early deficit. So then in week 2, when they start performing much better in the early game, that's the sort of building block. Say, well, if our late game, decision-making, team fighting, that's all good. If we can build up our early game, then we remove a lot of weaknesses that other teams can target. That's the exact right approach for them to try and evolve over the course of the season.
Yeah, and a lot of the criticism was that their early game was absolutely horrendous for a team that can team fight so well in the late to lose so much in the early. And I did some nitty-gritty research, and I found that Razok, yes, he's their playmaker, he's the hero, but there's a very fine line between a hero and an inter sometimes in a game, because you're playing on top of that fine line. And a lot of his deaths are in the river, going for the Skull Crabs, going for the Barons, going for the Dragons when there's no priority and there's no vision. Luckily for them, they fixed that completely in the second week.
And can I just ask a newbie question, just because we're talking about early game, just for my own education? Early game, I mean, when you have a weak early game, is it not a script, the early game of League of Legends? Is there not a kind of a flow chart that everyone follows, or is there more to it than that? I mean, surely that's something that is more about team cohesion than anything else.
I mean, do you want to ask XL?
I mean, that probably would be a better place to start. I'm just, all right, never mind. I was trying to get a bit meta there.
No, I mean, honestly, hey, Machine, honestly, Excel would probably answer that question for you, because last split, it was a script for them, and it was just terrible. Every single lane loses. And ultimately, it depends, like, what kind of jungler you have, the laner's the dynamic there, because you'd had teams in the past, right, like a Broxa type who kind of runs around and helps out every single lane, is very supportive in that sense. Or you could have a jungler, you know, I'm on, my mind's on Fnatic, that's much more focused about his team, like an old self-made who is much more about, or not his team, on himself, where it's much more about farming. So it does tend to change based on player, based on meta. It's not just one set book that you can immediately download, and that's why some junglers are adapting faster than others to the new role.
Yeah, including ones brand new to the role on a professional scale, apparently. Bwipo holding all of those #1 stats. Still, let's talk a little bit about Dan, heading into the XL side of things. He's been stepping up, apparently, and I'd love to talk a little bit about what he's bringing to the team.
I was casting Dan back in the NLC when he was playing in Fnatic Rise, and he was doing really well on more facilitating kind of champions when he had really strong lanes. Obviously, that's a struggle when you have the roster of last split from Excel, where their laners could not excel in their lane. But now you see that he's playing a little bit more aggressive, having the experience of Nukeduck, having the aggression of Nukeduck in the mid lane, and his last Zinza game, I really hope we see more of that aggression on a lot more champions.
There are two things that are absolutely crucial there. You said it, Nukeduck and him playing around mid. You saw him invading, not with the help of Nukeduck, but just having that support right there behind him. On top of that, Denick, we know as very aggressive playmaking type support, doesn't have to crush you in the lane, but on his time on Misfits, he was most known for those mid-game situations teaming up with his jungler. So now Dan has a couple of players that he can go, okay, I know I can play around Nukeduck potentially early on, and later in the game, Denick is right there to go in, engage fights with me. That's the key here for Excel, and leveling up their really tragic early game. It has looked so much better, especially in week 2.
Rock and roll. Well, week 3, we get to kind of take a further look at it. Expectations have fully been weathered and set. Do you have a leniency in particular? I mean, everyone seems to be considering this a coin toss. Do you have one team you have a higher expectation for?
Seeing how Misfits were able to fix the early game in the previous week and Excel is still sort of struggling, I would lean slightly towards Misfits, but I think it's anyone's game at this point.
4-1, it would be a huge leap towards that 5th win in the column in pursuit of playoffs. We will see if Excel can leave Misfits and the experts gobsmacked in our opening game as we kick off week 3 of LEC Summer.